Did you know that some coffees in the US were once found to contain tiny shards of glass?
So the FDA says it could potentially contain fragments of glass.
Product may contain fragments of glass.
Just one sip in the morning could cut your throat without you even realizing it. This is not a rumor. It actually happened, was documented, and could still be sitting quietly in your kitchen cabinet. The problem is not just spoiled coffee or a wrong label. The real issue is that what we call pure coffee can sometimes be loaded with excessive caffeine preservatives, printing ink, or even deadly bacteria if stored improperly. In this video, we're going to look at 5 coffee brands that were once pulled off shelves in the US for reasons you would never expect. If you still believe coffee is completely safe, you need to watch this video right now. Number 1. New Mexico Pinon coffee. Listen, if you've ever loved the feeling of pressing a button and waiting for that familiar drip of hot coffee from your Keurig, this part is going to make your skin crawl. Because on the list of coffees recently flagged as potentially dangerous, there's one name that millions of Americans have trusted for decades: New Mexico Pinon coffee. Yes, the very same coffee many people once called the coffee for pine lovers. But here's what you might not know: the dark Pinon single-serve cups, those convenient pods made for coffee machines, were recommended for recall by the FDA. And the reason wasn't the flavor, and it wasn't the expiration date, it was the ink. You heard that right. Ink. A production report revealed that several batches had misprinted lids. This meant the food-grade ink on the top could leak when exposed to the high-pressure hot water inside your machine. What does that mean? It means the cup of coffee you drink every morning may have traces of ink dissolved inside, invisible to the naked eye. Think about it. How long has it been since you actually looked closely at the tiny lid on a coffee pod? Now picture this. You're an older adult living alone with a mild heart condition and trouble sleeping. You choose the Pinon pods because they're fragrant, gentle, convenient, and familiar. Every morning you sit by the same window waiting for the hum of your machine and thinking everything is fine. But all the while, a small amount of ink from a faulty lid is slipping into your cup. No color, no smell, no warning. Can you see yourself in that situation? Seriously, this isn't the first time a coffee brand has been caught with problems in their lid seals or packaging process. But what makes New Mexico Pinon coffee more alarming is the depth of trust they've built. People assume local brand must be safe. They believe this aroma is natural, it can't hurt anyone. The truth is, if you leave your morning cup of coffee up to a manufacturing error, you're gambling with your blood, your liver, and your nervous system. And if you're thinking, well, I've probably never had that one, remember this. Those pods were sold at Walmart, Target, and Costco for years. You may have picked them up for convenience, or worse, someone may have given you a box as a holiday gift, and it's still sitting somewhere in your pantry. That's more than just drinking the wrong coffee. That's not even knowing you've been drinking the wrong coffee. See, danger doesn't always come from scary chemicals or toxic pesticides. Sometimes it only takes a thin layer of faulty ink plus high brewing heat to turn your morning coffee ritual into an invisible risk. Have you ever used these pods? Do you have a box of New Mexico Pinon sitting in your kitchen right now? Check immediately. And if you have older loved ones who still brew pods every morning, send them this video. One reminder could save someone from a risk they never saw coming. Number 2. Starbucks. Who still remembers when Starbucks used to symbolize the American dream of success? A cold frappuccino bought at a shiny store holding that green logo cup and feeling like you were living the modern lifestyle. For many middle-aged Americans, Starbucks was their first taste of stepping out of the neighborhood and into a bustling shopping mall. It's tied to memories, to kids, to midlife dates. But maybe it's time to face the truth. The logo that once guaranteed quality now sparks more doubt than ever.
A popular bottled Starbucks drink is being recalled tonight. More than 25,000 cases of vanilla frappuccinos are being pulled from shelves. This is after pieces of glass were found inside some of those bottles.
Starbucks is recalling thousands of cases of vanilla frappuccino drinks, and that's because some of the bottles may have glass inside.
In 2023, nearly 300,000 bottles of Starbucks Frappuccino sold at retail were recalled. In 2023, nearly 300,000 bottles of Starbucks Frappuccino sold at retail were recalled. Not because they expired and not because of poor storage, but because they might have contained tiny shards of glass inside the bottles. Glass. Inside a sealed, factory-packaged coffee drink sitting perfectly on shelves. Are you shivering yet? The scary part isn't the recall number. It's that no one caught the problem until the bottles had already been mass-produced, shipped, and stocked in supermarkets across America, which means you might have already drunk, swallowed, and digested a bottle of Frappuccino with glass in it without ever knowing. No pain, no bleeding. Just a silent scrape from your throat to your stomach to your intestines. That's no longer just a manufacturing error. That's a crack in consumer trust. And what makes it even more unsettling is this. Starbucks isn't a cheap brand. People spend $3 to $5 on a single cold coffee bottle thinking they're buying peace of mind. But what happens when that premium price tag can't even protect you from danger? In other words, if Starbucks can let this happen, who else can you really trust? Have you ever given your kids one of those Frappuccinos in the morning? Have you ever stocked a fridge full of them, saving them for days when you didn't feel like brewing coffee? If the answer is yes, then maybe it's time to ask yourself, who's really in control of what you're drinking every day? I know many of you watching this video once loved Starbucks. Maybe you still have a membership card, still grab refills at Walmart, or still keep a limited edition lid. But every love deserves a warning if it starts to betray you. The Frappuccino incident is not a small slip-up to brush off. It's a warning sign of something bigger cracks in the quality control system, even at America's biggest coffee brand. If a global giant like Starbucks can put bottles with glass on shelves, then no one is safe. Not you, not your family. And if you once trusted them completely, maybe this is the moment to pause and look closely at what you're putting in your body every single day. Do you still have a bottle sitting in your fridge? Have you ever felt stomach pain after drinking bottled coffee? Drop a comment below or share this so your loved ones don't become the next victim. Number 3. My Family. The name My Family feels comforting, doesn't it? So familiar that most people don't think twice when they see it on a store shelf. This brand of coffee shows up across several Midwestern states, usually in simple packaging, budget-friendly, and common in small local grocery stores. You see the word family on the label, and you think of kindness. You believe that a brand with such a name would never harm its customers. But did you know that this very coffee, the one labeled as decaf, was found to contain unusually high levels of caffeine? Stop for a second and think about why you choose decaf. Maybe it's because you have high blood pressure. Maybe it's because you're on heart medication. Or maybe you just want to sleep peacefully after 8 p.m. But if what's labeled as decaf still carries caffeine, what happens then? Someone avoiding caffeine could end up sweating with a racing heartbeat, lying awake all night and never understanding why. And they might keep drinking a second or third cup that week because they believe they're consuming something caffeine-free. That's not a small mistake. That's a slap in the face of consumer trust. What makes this issue even more dangerous is that not everyone has access to lab results or detailed reports. Seniors, people living alone, they don't have the tools to test caffeine levels in every scoop of coffee. All they have is the label. And when the label says decaf, they believe it. Can you see yourself in that situation? It gets even harsher when you realize this brands like My Family are often given as gifts from children and grandchildren to parents or grandparents as a simple token of love. This coffee is good, it's decaf, you can drink it every night. But sometimes that very love leads to consequences nobody saw coming. This isn't the first time a coffee brand has been caught mislabeling, but the name My Family makes it sting more, because it creates the illusion that we're being protected, being cared for, when in reality we're not. Maybe you've never drunk My Family coffee yourself, but maybe you've gifted it. Maybe you've seen it sitting in your mom's kitchen, in your grandma's old pantry, or tucked into a holiday gift basket last year. And if that's the case, you might want to double check before it's too late. I'm not saying every product with the word family is untrustworthy, but you have to ask yourself, since when did we have to question even the most familiar things? What do you think about a coffee labeled decaf still carrying dangerous amounts of caffeine? Have you ever had strange symptoms after drinking something sold as caffeine-free? Share your thoughts below so others can be warned too. Number 4, our family. There are brands that don't need ads. They don't need flashy promotions. They don't need celebrities to endorse them. They just quietly sit on store shelves for 20 years. And the strange thing is, the simpler and more familiar they look, the less people tend to question them. Our family is one of those brands. It doesn't move you. It doesn't excite you. But it's there in small-town Midwest stores, in the kitchen cabinets of millions of American households. You see it at the local grocery store in food assistance packages or on your mom's receipt from her weekly shopping trip. And that's where the danger lies. Not long ago, a coffee labeled Traverse City Cherry Decaf Ground Coffee under the Our Family brand was recalled because it actually contained caffeine despite being sold as decaf. That's right. A mistake that might seem small, but for someone with heart problems, high blood pressure, or ongoing sleep issues, it can be a matter of life and death. But the real issue here isn't just the technical mistake. It's the feeling of being tricked by something familiar. Have you ever walked into a store, seen that red and white logo you recognize, and bought it simply because that's the brand we've always used? Have you ever assumed that the label Our Family meant safe because it reminded you of ordinary family life? That's exactly how people fall into the trap, trusting what feels familiar without checking further. Do you remember when we could look at packaging and immediately know the product inside was good? Those days are gone. Now, the more familiar the packaging looks, the more cautious you should be. Coffee labeled decaf, but containing caffeine isn't a first-time mistake. But when it happens with a brand woven into daily life like Our Family, the disappointment cuts deeper. Because older consumers, people living alone, or those relying on their children's support, don't have the resources to double-check every batch number or lot code. They trust the system, they trust the brand, and then the system betrays them. No one warns them. There's no bold label saying, "Warning, this product has been recalled." Everything just sits quietly on shelves. People still walk by, pick it up, and pay for it. Meanwhile, caffeine, the very thing they're trying to avoid, keeps slipping into their bloodstream every morning. Have you ever bought something just because it looked familiar? Do you still have a box of Our Family coffee in your pantry? Is someone in your household drinking what they believe is safe decaf? Check right now. And if you see how serious this is, leave a comment. We don't need more family brands that trick us into trust just because they look familiar. Number 5, Clover Valley. What comes to mind when you see a jar of coffee priced at just $1.99? For many people living on a fixed income, that feels like a bargain. A small ray of light in a time when the price of everything keeps rising except your pension. So it's no surprise that millions of Americans turn to Clover Valley Dollar General's in-house brand as a budget-friendly coffee solution for their mornings. But what few expected was that this jar of instant coffee ended up on the FDA's urgent recall list because it might contain glass shards. You heard that right, glass, in coffee. The incident happened just a few months ago. Certain batches of Clover Valley instant coffee were found to be contaminated with tiny fragments from glass jars during the packaging process. Pieces so small, they're almost invisible to the naked eye, yet sharp enough to slice a throat or damage internal organs if swallowed. How painful is that, knowing the cheap coffee you picked to save money could cost you thousands of dollars in hospital bills? This isn't about a rare manufacturing slip. It's about a lack of respect for low-income consumers. People who can't afford Starbucks, who don't care about fancy brands, who just want one hot cup in the morning to stay awake for work. And what do they get? A jar of coffee that looks carelessly packaged, put on shelves, and sold without a warning. Do you feel like a lab rat in some cheap coffee experiment? Seniors are especially vulnerable in situations like this. They don't always follow the news. They don't know the product was recalled. And they're used to finishing every last spoonful because they don't want to waste. A single jar of Clover Valley might sit in the kitchen for a month. Every morning, they stir it into hot water and believe everything is fine. But what if a shard of glass is sitting at the bottom, waiting to be stirred into that warm cup? Have you ever put your trust in a bargain brand? Did you ever assume that just because it's on the shelf at Dollar General, it has to be safe? That's the mistake millions of Americans are making right now. Clover Valley doesn't run big ad campaigns, but maybe that silence is what makes it even more widespread, quietly finding its way into struggling neighborhoods, into the portable kitchens of truck drivers, into food aid bags for retirees. And the heartbreaking part is this: the very communities that deserve protection first are often the ones left unprotected when a product fails. Do you have a jar of Clover Valley in your home? Have you ever felt stomach pain after drinking instant coffee without knowing why? Check now. And if you know someone still buying this brand, share this video with them. A warning given early could save a life. And those are just 5 of the coffee brands that have been recalled in the US. Not because they were obscure, not because you had never heard of them, but precisely because they were so familiar that most people overlooked them. The question is no longer, does this coffee taste good? The real question is, do you actually know what you're drinking every morning? A little too much caffeine, a tiny glass shard no one notices, or a mislabeled decaf stamp? Any of these can turn an ordinary day into a string of unexpected risks. Have you ever tried any of the coffees on this list? Share your experience below, because your warning might be the reason someone else avoids disaster.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage segregation. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.